confidence.
Well,
Trash,
I mean,
trash talk trash talk doesn't do it.
it's a handcrafted lineup.
I will say,
Bruce,
Bruce arguing last week got Hall of Famer here, 20 Gold Glovers there. It's tough to argue against Bruce's lineup.
Hey, what have you done for me lately? All those awards are in the past. How's that green screen looking, Len?
Hopefully good.
Yeah, it looks nice.
Yeah,
How do you feel about it? Feel pretty good?
Yeah, it's just a much better place in the house.
You have no animals trying to chew your green screen like I do? My cat loves to, every once in a while, come give it a nibble. It's like, we're going to need to take it easy there, buddy.
Deuce, did you see that Cole's green screen was breaking up a little bit? I think it's settled down, but did you make adjustments on that?
Yep, made adjustments. Almost done framing up, then I'll get mic checks here. Stand by.
Okay. Yeah, no rush. Just making sure we saw it.
Cole, is this the first game you and I going against each other? Did we already play a game? Or?
First game for me, last game for you.
Whoa! Wow! Man. He brought it today, Bruce.
Come on. What am I supposed to be like? Well, I don't know if my team can win, guys. I hope we can do our best. Like, no, my team's going out there to win today. They're not going out there to lose. They didn't put those spikes on to go out there and
we have no control over it. Some guy with a twirler on top of his head figuring it out right now.
It's the ultimate hypothetical.
Well, you know why Cole's all fiery today? He's getting a breather tomorrow.
He's off?
Yeah, I mean, we could have had the breather on Monday and then made it a 3-day weekend for me, but I guess not. That would have.
Well, why do you need a day off?
Well, they just because they want Elise to do the show in case, like, when I have to leave, it's in case I'm in transit, I'm not able to do it.
Yeah, Elise is gonna fill in just so we have some options. If needed.
You're not worried about that, Cole? Or?
Oh, should I be? I don't know.
All right, Cole, can I grab a 5 count from you real quick?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Bruce, same with you.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Thank you. Len, 5 count if you can.
Sure. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Thank you. And Pete.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Perfect. Thank you.
Cole and Bruce, you guys saw the messages, right? Just making sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great.
That jumps on me.
Deuce, whenever you're ready, just a one shot at Cole, and then we'll get going. Just making sure the records are good too.
All right, Miller, I'm all set here.
Great. All right.
Oh, you know what? I didn't put my light on. I'm sorry, KD. I didn't have my.
Oh, that could be why. Yeah, I was doing some mad adjustments, but you look
sorry,
fine,
man. I had my because it's my daughter's light, so she can hit she can take batting practice once the lights go out. So we had that out in the driveway, so I had to go downstairs and I forgot to turn it back on. My bad.
All right, let's see here real quick.
Called the garage the strength lab. That's where she gets after it.
Whose lab do you like better, yours or Tommy Hodavy's?
Stand by, Miller. Just
A
checking the
little more bells and whistles in that lab, but she gets after it, man. She gets her jump ropes in, her squats, and her catching drills and hits.
Dusold, what was that? I missed that.
nothing. I'm all set here. Starting on single Cole.
Yep. Coming up on Cole.
Right, bear with me, guys. I want to make sure this is. Hopefully, we can get this done once because I wanted to make it sound, pretty solid. As it's serious tone.
We're gonna make sure we get this done the right way.
It's like I feel like I'm reading an obit. Like, where are we at in 2020? It's like, geez, Louise.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. In 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hey, welcome into Cubs 360, presented by Miller Lite. I'm Cole Wright, and today we begin the show on a serious tone because in light of recent events, we at Marquee Sports Network unequivocally stand with all those seeking justice after the senseless murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis, Minnesota last week. Now, as we seek to find a solution nationwide as well as around the globe, please remember the words spoke by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Injustice anywhere.
All good. You can count yourself in here.
Yep.
Take a second if you need it.
No, I'm good. I'm good. I just don't want to mess that. You don't want to mess up a quotation by Dr. King.
No, you definitely not.
All right. In 3, 2, 1. Hey, and welcome to Cubs 360, presented by Miller Lite. I'm Cole Wright, and today we start the show on a serious tone because in light of recent events, we at Marquee Sports Network unequivocally stand with all those seeking justice after the senseless murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis, Minnesota last week. Now, as we look to find a solution nationwide as well as around the globe, please remember the words once spoke by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And with that, it's time to start the show. So let's meet today's panelists. We bring in our three-man weave. It's Bruce Levine, it's Len Casper, and it's Pete McMurray. And guys, hopefully we're getting one step in the right direction of getting baseball back sooner rather than later, because it will be the great appetizer. And the Players Association, well, they've submitted their proposal to the owners for the 2020 campaign. And here's some of the key elements that proposal includes. It's a 114-game regular season schedule, which would last from June 30th all the way until Halloween, October 31st. Now, it's a 14-team postseason field, an increase of 4 teams over the next 2 campaigns, and the option for $100 million in salary to be deferred. That is if the postseason is canceled. And the players, they could have the right to opt out and not participate in the 2020 campaign. That is always on the table. So, Bruce, when we look at this framework, when it comes to the most intriguing, most interesting bullet point, what is it to you?
Well, I think when I heard deferment by the players, it showed some reality to the situation that I think has to be there, knowing that the money, it just isn't there for a whole season, and that without fans in the stands, it's going to be different. So just the idea that they're accepting of some form of deferment, that gives you the idea that there's that's an open door to talking about having money paid down the line to the players, and that they know it's not there for this particular season. So to me, that was the most important part of what I heard. It's definitely showing an area where they can go over the next 4 or 5 days and work out something that makes sense, because everything else should be able to be worked out. The health issues should all be worked out pretty easily. The amount of games, that's going to be difficult to play 114 in about 120 days. Yeah. You're asking for a tremendous amount of trouble when you talk about injuries to players. That is just too difficult. So my guess is that this is the beginning of another couple rounds of information. And hopefully, as fans of the game, which we all are, we don't hear much about this in the next 3 or 4 days, and they have serious sit downs and get something worked out.
I find all of it interesting. In terms of the financial discussion, it seems as though the players are trying to reset the parameters a little bit. Nominally, they were kind of at that 50% marker with the prorated salary and an 82 game schedule. The owners, as we know, a few days ago asked them to take a little bit more of a hit due to their financial situation. The players responded by essentially adding games and now would be in that 70 percentile range. So the middle ground, I think they're trying to move it a little bit, and let's see how it goes this week. So that's probably the most important, biggest obstacle to get past for these two sides. I agree with Bruce. I think it's going to be difficult to get 114 games in just because as days tick off, man, you start to get into November, it could be really tricky. I don't love the expanded postseason just because I think baseball is about the long haul. But the fact that both sides do agree on that note, we're going to have 14 teams in the playoffs, I think, maybe moving forward, not just these next 2 years, but a long process moving forward. And then lastly, the opt-out for some players who are at risk health-wise or maybe have family members who are at risk leads me to believe that there are, in fact, some players who will not participate this year. That's really interesting.
I agree with you, Len. I mentioned that last week. If players want to sit out, they're worried about their health. God bless them. Let them sit out. But when I looked at this thing, what I first thought is this thing is just a mess to me. But what stood out was the owners saying that, it's all about cash flow and they want to defer the players' salaries. So you have the players getting paid here. You have the owners deferring salaries, which means they're not going to drain their bank account. So it seems a win-win. But you have to take into consideration this is all a game. It's all a game. The owners made the offer last week, and the players immediately said no. And now the players are going to make an offer. The owners are going to say no. Then they're going to find common ground. But 117 games means they have to start in 4 weeks. They need 4 weeks of spring training, which means they got to get the deal done this week. I don't know if I see 117 games happening, and that deal probably won't be done this week, in my opinion.
Yeah, it seems to be a perpetual game of cat and mouse with the roles ever reversing. And Len, when you take a look at some of this framework, 82 games versus 100 plus, playing all the way up until October 31st, that would just extend the postseason. Who knows, maybe all the way until Christmas. Is this something that makes a whole lot of sense, playing all the way till the end of October?
Well, because there's so much we don't know, will there be fans allowed at ballparks toward the end of the quote regular season? If that's the case, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I would prefer to see the postseason played in regular ballparks and not move everything to a neutral site. If there are no fans allowed, then I suppose you could move to warm weather sites just to make sure everything's going to work out. I think there's probably a compromise between 82 and 114. And let's say you pick 94, 96 games, something like that. Maybe we get near that 50% marker, but the players say we'll give you an extra 14 to 20 games, and that's how we work out the compromise.
From what I understand, anything past October 1st is a non-starter for the owners, and not a punitive way, but the two realities are that they do not want to attempt to lose the postseason because of the pandemic coming back. That's their main concern, is the health issue, and that the lion's share of the money for both the players this year and the owners will be represented by the playoff money. So they don't want to mess with that and weather. Okay, so you play till November. Who's going to be sitting in Midwest cities in ballparks in November, even if they're allowed to be in there? Plus, you're going head to head in the NFL's the teeth of their season. You're going to make Fox pick out whether they want baseball or football first. It's just too much. So I think we're going to see the regular season end very close to October 1st if the owners have their way about it. But it's not a right or wrong thing. It's just as both of the guys said, it's a way to get this right and to compromise.
My first thought was the weather, Bruce. I agree with you 100%. Think about Wrigley Field in the middle of October. One day it could be sunny and 80, and the next day it could be snowing. Like last October, it was snowing. They need to get the regular season done and start the playoffs in October, and they need the playoffs. We all want to see closure. Look at the NBA right now and the NHL. We want closure of those seasons. Get the deal done. If you have somewhere between 82 and 117 games, great. But make sure you start the playoffs somewhere at the beginning of October.
Yeah, whether it's the East Coast or the Midwest, I don't think we want to see any playoff games derailed by a nor'easter or potentially a polar vortex. It's just not very baseballish. Now, still to come right here on Cubs 360. More to get to, including the Cubs, who have a rich tradition when it comes to starting pitchers. There's Ferguson Jenkins, Carlos Zambrano, Kerry Wood, just to name a few. So who's our guy if we need a win? And here's a side note. We can't pick Greg Maddux. Wonder why I didn't mention him? That's why. Our choice is coming next, right here. You're watching Cubs 360, presented by Miller Lite.
Good block there, Cole. Nice job off the top.
Good stuff. Thank you, sir.
Good job, Cole.
Yeah, nice work. And that's a tough one.
Yeah.
Thank you, fellas.
Yeah, you did great.
Thank you. Especially, I'm all about having fun. Going to SeaWorld, taking my pants off.
Yeah. SeaWorld is still open?
No, that's from Anchorman. Remember Champ Kynes? Like, I'm all about having fun.
Okay.
You know, going to SeaWorld, taking my pants off. And he tried to take home plate from me.
Good reference there.
Stylish one of the group.
So off the top
got a gun
here,
at a
Cole,
party? What's Brian Fantana doing?
Cole, you got a long read off the top for our ultimate lineups. And then, as you mentioned, no one here picked Greg Maddux, or I should say, everyone here picked Greg Maddux as their
Everyone
pitcher.
picked Greg Maddux, yeah.
So
we did tease Bruce and I going head-to-head in this first round. I mean, there's no mention of that.
You can work it in there. Feel free. So the conversation is, who is your number 2 in your rotation for your Cubs ultimate lineup? You know, in game 2 of your World Series, so to speak. Who are you putting on the mound? And we're teasing, will the Cubs miss Castellanos at the end of this?
Yep. Who's starting this one?
Let's go Len, Pete, Bruce. About a minute here for each of your answers. Dusold, good to go.
Didn't Ferguson Jenkins win 20 games in 7 straight seasons? Is that what it was?
He did.
I think 6.
Yes.
Six.
6 straight seasons? Was 6 with the Cubs?
67 to 72.
Straight. 6 straight with the Cubs, yep.
I thought he won 1 with another team.
He did with Texas.
So it was 7 straight.
No,
6 straight with the
7
Cubs. Was not 7 straight?
Wasn't
Okay,
7
just
straight,
double checking. Okay. Still, so that's a gaudy stat. Gaudy.
No, he did not. It was 6 in a row. He won 25 and 74.
Yeah.
But he won 14 and 73 with the Cubs. So, yeah.
How many did he lose?
Which year?
14. The year he won
14
only won
and
14.
16.
16.
14
wow.
and 16.
But he had pitch complete games.
Yeah, no, exactly right. Like if those guys had middle relievers and a solid stable of guys in the bullpen for them, imagine.
It's 300 innings.
All right, here we go here
It's
on the B's. In 5, 4, 3, 2.
All right, welcome back to Cubs 360, presented by Miller Lite. And it is time for our Ultimate Cubs lineup tournament presented by UI Health. Now, single game simulations, as always, built by Stratomatic, the market leader in sports simulations. And in the first round, Carlos Pena. He went way back. He had Mordecai Three Fingers Brown as his man on the mound against Mark DeRosa, who went with himself as a utility player off the bench. I like where your head's at, D-Row. And Mark, he won a nail-biter, 1-zip, as Billy Williams drove in Alfonso Soriano with the game's only run. That's a quality at-bat. Now, our second matchup is a broadcast showdown. Len Casper, he leans on Rogers Hornsby as his leadoff stick against Jim DeShays, who, get this, JD only chose Cubs between 1920 and 1960. That's well before HD. Now, JD's pitching duo of Pete Alexander and Mordecai Brown, they shut out Len's lineup in a 4-0 victory. Len, tough pumpkins right there. So you can head to MarqueeSportsNetwork.com for more on our Ultimate Cubs lineup tournament. And be sure to keep it here all week long on Cubs 360. First round action coming your way all week long. And we saw Len going down to JD, and probably later today you're going to see my man Bruce Levine fall to my Ultimate Cubs lineup team. And Bruce is here along with Len and Pete McMurray. And guys, when we take Greg Maddux out of the equation, all of us had him as our starting pitcher in our Ultimate Cubs lineup. And we need a pitcher who's going to go out there and win a game for us. So if you had to go with someone other than the Mad Dog, Len, who you going with?
Well, first of all, I'm filing a protest. There's no chance my lineup would not have scored against JD's pitching. I don't care who it was. But I was strategic about how I chose it because it was really for one game. That's why I took Greg Maddux. I took the 92 to 97 Greg Maddux, who at one point won, 4 Cy Youngs in a row. If we're talking best pitchers in Cubs history, it's probably Mordecai Brown, Charlie Root, Ferguson Jenkins. Those would be the top 3 guys in terms of all-time Cubs. But I'm not going to pick any of those guys for my number 2 starter. I picked Maddux because of consistency and the fact that you knew he wouldn't give up a 10 spot. I'm going to take as my number 2 guy Jake Arrieta, whose 30-start stretch between late 2015 and early 2016 is probably the best 30-start stretch any of us on this panel will ever see ever again, including 2 no-hitters. He was so dominant. Jake Arrieta is my number 2.
How do I follow the Cubs announcer to that? I mean, what am I supposed to say here? First of all, let me say how much I love Greg Maddux. I mean, the guy won, and Len mentioned it, he won the Cy Young 4 years in a row. Think about that. He won 4 years in a row. He won 15 games for 17 straight years. He was a workhorse. But what I loved about Maddux, and I mentioned this early on when we talked about our ultimate lineup, he didn't walk a lot of people. That's why my number 2 pitcher would be Fergie Jenkins. Very similar to Greg Maddux. He had, 6 straight years with 20 wins. He had over 3,000 strikeouts, but he had less than 1,000 walks in his career. And Fergie looks great in a cowboy hat. How does a guy from Canada look good in a cowboy hat? Fergie is my number 2.
Well, it's hard to argue with either choice. Initially, I was going to go with what Len said because Arrieta won 68% of his decisions, which is in the top 3, and as far as a modern-day pitcher in Cub history, number 1. 68% of his decisions, a whip of just a little bit over 1, which is high up there. The dead ball era guys are great, but it was a dead ball era. So you cannot really equate that to what's going on right now. I'm going to go for the one season, as Len said, I'm going to go with Rick Sutcliffe from 1984. 16-1, totally dominant. When he went on the mound, he was invincible. That was my guy. So although the other 2 picks are sensational, I'm going to go with the Red Baron for my pick.
And Pete, I like where your head was at with that pick that you had, but I might have to go with Jake Arrieta and Len only because I was in attendance at that first no-hitter of his on Sunday Night Baseball. So Jake Arrieta, like we said, I'm sorry, guys.
All good. We'll pick it up off the last answer there. Can obviously just cover up Bruce.
I'll start in the $4 here.
Yep, starting the 4.
3.
All right, here we go.
2, 1. Yep. 3, 2, 1. Pete, I like where your head is at with Ferguson Jenkins, over a 3-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio career. But I was in attendance on Sunday Night Baseball when I saw Jake Arrieta throw that no-hitter. So Len Casper, I'm rolling with you. Sorry about that, Bruce. We'll get back to our Ultimate Cubs lineup in just a bit. Now, still more to come right here on Cubs 360, presented by Miller Lite, including will Theo Epstein and Jed Hoyer regret letting Nick Castellanos walk, especially to Cincinnati, or will the Cubs have enough fill-ins to fill his void? Well, a discussion is going to break out next right here. You're watching Cubs 360.
Nice. No one going Kyle Hendricks under 3 ERA in the playoffs in the postseason?
He's basically Maddux. To me, they're the same guy. You take Hendricks or Maddux.
I was thinking Rick Russell.
He's like the poor man's,
good.
as they said.
All rush will be better.
The poor man's Greg Maddux, just like Al Leiter. They used to call Al Leiter the poor man's Greg Maddux, and it's like Al Leiter's pretty good. You want to call him the poor man's anything?
And he's definitely not poor himself.
No, yeah, I heard he's a good dude too. I don't know him, but
he is
high. We started with this one.
High energy all the time. There's just no off switch.
He's Dan Plesac.
Yeah,
he's poor man's Dan Plesac.
Yes. We'll go Pete, Bruce Len. And so this one, we're coming off of a Castellanos home run. He kind of had like that bat slam home run, if you remember from last year. And the Miller Lite refreshing take is the Cubs will not miss Nick Castellanos. They got a number of options, especially, they brought in Souza to platoon with Hayward, Almora, Happ, even Miller now in the fold with the expanded roster and whatnot. And at the end, we are teasing Sammy Sosa's 20 home runs in June. So we'll get rolling. Try to keep it
number 20.
About a minute per answer here. Deuce, records are all set.
All ready to go. Starting a single of Cole here.
Great. All right, here we go. In 5, 4, 3, 2.
All right, we continue to roll here on Cubs 360, presented by Miller Lite. The gang's still all here. Bruce, Len, and Pete. And guys, at the 2020 season, we're underway. We'd be putting a bow on a homestand for the Cubs versus the Cincinnati Reds, a 4-game set to be exact. And the guy that we just saw with that emphatic bat flip, Nick Castellanos, well, he would be having a homecoming. And Castellanos gets me to our Miller Lite refreshing take of the day, which is the Cubs. They're not going to miss Nick at all in 2020. Pete, I'll let you start things off, man.
I completely disagree. I loved having Nick. I loved his energy. The guy could hit. It seemed like every time he got up to bat, he hit a double. But we need to see our outfielders hit a little bit more. Schwarber needs a breakout year this year. He's got to hit over 250. I know the second half of last season he did pretty well, but we need him to raise that his average. Souza, he's on a 1-year deal. We don't know how good he is coming off knee surgery. Ian Happ, I worry about his strikeouts. Almora, where is he going to be this year? He's a head case. I'd like to see him where he was back in 2017, where he was close to 300. But I'm very excited about Ian Miller. Ian Miller can hit, he can field, and he can steal bases. That's the guy that I want to see. I want to say he was batting 382 in spring training, and he had 8 stolen bases. So Ian Miller is the guy that I'd really like to see this year.
Yeah, I like Miller too, and the Cubs are going to have to diversify. With Castellanos, he was a extra base hitting machine. And the energy was off the chart. But they have to move on from there. I liked what I saw from Souza in spring training. If his leg is healthy, he could be dominant. Miller could bring in the dimension of speed and on base percentage. So they're going to have to get run production. The outfield for the Cubs over the last few years have not produced enough runs. Okay, they have not produced enough pop. So from the perspective of run production, run scoring, and run producing, they have to do a better job. And Ian Happ, if he's any semblance to the guy that he was the last 2 weeks of September, after spending most of the time in the minor leagues, that might be your breakout player this year.
I think the answer is both. The Cubs will definitely miss the 51 games as a Cub, Nicholas Castellanos, but that's still relatively a pretty small sample size. He had an OPS of just over 1,000. And the interesting part of that is Kyle Schwarber essentially had the same second half, but he was overshadowed by the newcomer. It was a terrific acquisition at the time. The Reds gave him a multi-year contract. I think what hurts the Cubs is that not only does Castellanos leave the team, but he goes to one of your chief competitors in the division. If he's as good as he was last year as a Cub, that is an enormous loss. He's a nice player, but if you look at his overall career, we saw him at his absolute best. And then I think ultimately, Cole, Steven Souza Jr. will answer the question of how much the Cubs will miss Castellanos because he really is that right-handed bat that replaced Castellanos. Ian Miller's a nice player. I'm not sure how many at-bats he's going to get. We don't know if there'll be a DH this year. I think Kyle Schwarber will get the lion's share of starts in left, Happ and Elmore in center, Hayward and Souza in right, and Souza can play just about anywhere in the outfield.
Now, guys, as I look down the panel over at Pete McMurray, I see a little bit of hatred coming towards Ian Happ. And now, Happ, he finished strong in September. He had a solid spring training, as we all mentioned. So why do you doubt him going into the season?
First of all, I'm a lover, not a hater. Okay, let me just say that. I would love to see a breakout season from Ian Happ. I do worry about strikeouts. I know he had a strong September, but what about Jason Hayward? He had such a good 2019 until they put him at the leadoff spot. I would love to see Jason Hayward step it up this year and start off like he did last year.
Well, Pete McMurray, you're like Jackie Moon in more ways than one. You have a Philanthropics uniform, and you also have a ring, and it too says love. Now, more to come right here on Cubs 360, presented by Miller Lite. And remember back in June of '98, Sammy Sosa? Well, he had quite the month, 20 home runs to be exact. But is that the most impressive stat in baseball history? We'll debate. Our picks, they're coming next right here on Cubs 360.
Love the semi-pro reference.
Oh, I have a ring too, and it says love.
Good segment there. That's a really good job of just breaking down what the outfield is gonna be looking like. So
semi-pro
last
is
block
better
here.
than
Go ahead, Cole.
the car racing one. That one's better than the car racing one. Talladega Nights.
Talladega Nights classic though.
Yeah.
So this one we're talking is Sammy Sosa's 20 home runs in June, the most impressive feat in MLB history. You can go a couple of go ahead, Bruce. You have a question?
I had one question. Is it for lifetime achievement or 1 year? Because that's it kind of helps you define what we want to do in the segment.
So we're really talking like the Joe DiMaggio, not necessarily career, but one. It doesn't have to be one season, because obviously this was just 1 month. But
you kind of take it wherever you want, I think, Bruce.
Yeah, exactly. Right. You can go. Oral Hershiser had the consecutive innings without conceding a run.
Crazy.
Can go in any direction you want. About 30 seconds, 45 each year.
But didn't Oral stretch go? How many games did it go? I mean, innings did it go? Because 59 was the end of the regular season. Didn't it go 67, Len? Into the postseason?
He might have given up a run like in the first inning against the Mets and then shut him out. I don't exactly know. I don't think it went 67.
Okay, maybe. I thought it went extended into the postseason. Notch, do you have that?
I thought he gave up a run in the first. I thought he gave up an unearned run or something like in the first inning of his first.
Was that what that was?
In the postseason, something like that.
I got 59 on the Google machine.
59. I didn't know if that was they're just the regular season. I thought that extended. All right. How about Rudy York? That's pretty impressive. 18 home runs in 1937 in a month.
I'll tell you right now.
What was that like, Bruce?
Funny. Come on, I had another hour. I had another hour and a half with you, man. I got another hour and a half with you, man.
Yeah, here we go. Let's finish strong.
Lay off.
We're coming back off a play at home promo. But this should just be.
No, you're right. He went 8 innings. Yeah, he went 8 innings in that first start. But it might have ended in the regular season though.
Yeah, I mean that's when they give the record because they obviously postseason.
Yeah.
Numbers don't carry over.
Postseason really should count for that. Postseason,
especially
really
a record like that.
Those.
I mean, that's just filth.
Hell yeah. Let me just double check here.
Thought they're throwing pinheads.
Yeah. He went 8 innings in his first. You're right. It was 67, including postseason. But 59 is the official record.
Still.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Notch is officially 59.
All right, here we go. Start on the 4 shot.
Yep.
In 5, 4, 3, 2.
All right, guys. Ryan Sweeney and Reed Johnson head-to-head on Play at Home trivia. If your DVRs aren't already set, go ahead and do so. We'll give you a second. All right, that's enough time. Back to the show here on Cubs 360 as we shut things down here. It's Bruce, it's Len, it's Pete, along with myself, Cole Wright. And guys, it is June 1st. And remember, back in 1998, the month of June, Sammy Sosa. Let's start. I'm gobbling words. Sorry, guys.
All good. You can count yourself in here.
Yep. 3, 2, 1. All right, guys. Reed Johnson and Ryan Sweeney toe-to-toe on Play at Home trivia. You won't want to miss that. DVRs, set them if you got them. In the meantime, back here on Cubs 360, putting a bow on this show, it's Bruce, it's Len, it's Pete. And guys, back in 1998, month of June, since it is June 1st, let's reminisce just a little bit. Sammy Sosa, he went yard not once, not twice, but 20 times in the month. So when you take a look at some of the numbers that baseball has been able to stack up through the test of time, is this the most impressive number? Bruce, I'll start with you.
Well, if we're going a month or a season, I'm going to have to go with Hack Wilson in 1930. 53, count them, 53 RBI in the month of September. You know, go to 6 times that, and you have a season of 300 RBIs. He has the all-time record at 191. It hasn't been approached except twice, and that was in the 40s. Nobody's come close to 191, and that was in an 154-game schedule. So I will go with Hack Wilson's 53 RBI in 1930 in September.
Okay.
Well, I don't want to compare this to other records because it can be apples to oranges. So I will just keep it to what kind of Bruce talked about and monthly calendar months and offensive performances. To add to Hack Wilson, Sammy's 20 homers in 27 games, June of 98. Todd Helton, May of 2000, hit .512. That was his batting average. Rudy York of the Tigers, 1937, August, 363, 18 home runs, 50 RBIs, and he had 1 plate appearance in the first 3 games of that month. Frank Thomas had a 1581 OPS in May of 94, and I saved the best 2 for last. How about a rookie named Gary Sanchez for the Yankees in August of 2016? Hit .389 with 11 home runs, and 39-year-old Barry Bonds in April of 2004, an OPS of 1828, 10 homers, 39 walks, and only 52 at-bats.
Which was, it should have been real, though.
June of 98. How much did we love June of 98? I can't wait for that series to start. Long gone summer with Sosa and McGuire. But guys, come on. 56-game hitting streak. Joe DiMaggio in the summer of 1941. 56-game hitting streak while he was juggling Marilyn Monroe. How can you say no to that? Come on.
And he missed out on a deal from Hines, because if he would have had 57 games in a row, then he would have had himself a catch-up
and
deal.
Then
I like that one.
He went off on 17 more right after that.
Absolutely. I like all your guys' picks, but I have to go with Hoot, the man they know as Bob Gibson. Back in 1968, he had a microscopic ERA, 1.12. So good, in fact, that they had to change the mound, not just for Bob Gibson, but for the entire league. So there's that. Next time they actually change the dimensions of the field, you guys can get back to me on that one. But our time here, it is over with on Cubs 360, presented by Miller Lite. So for everyone at Marquee Sports Network, including Bruce, Len, and Pete, I would say I'd see you tomorrow, but I'll see you on Wednesday, because Elise Menaker, she's going to handle the duties. So have a good one, everybody, until we meet next time.
Nice, Cole. Good job stretching there at the end a little bit. Great. That was awesome to hear all the stats. And the Marilyn Monroe nugget, just, a little extra something.
Juggling Marilyn Monroe. That's a great line, Pete.
That's why I'm here, guys. That's why you have me on the show.
Lenny, you killed with all those numbers.
That was great, Len.
How do I follow that?
Just trying
Bruce
to
and Cole,
have fun.
Bruce and Cole, I need you guys to hang around. But Len and Pete, you guys are good. Thank you. Good show today. Appreciate it.
See you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Have a great
Have a
week.
good one.
Good stuff, gentlemen.
Cole, I'm going to have you. I think Al is actually already in. I think he's actually already here. He might be waiting.
Yep, he's here. Stand by. I'll bring him in. There he is right there.
Do we have audio on him, Kevin?
Yep, you hear me, Al? This is Kevin, the director again.
Yes, I hear you. You hear me okay?
Perfect. Hear you well.
Hey, Al, it's Andrew, the producer. Thanks for
Hey, Andrew.
taking some time to join us today. You're with Cole and Bruce. If you want to put on
What's
my
up,
three
Al?
shot real quick.
What's up, Al?
How you doing?
How you doing?
Yep, just setting
Good.
him.
And Al, how do you pronounce your last name? Is it Yellen? Yellen?
Yelling, yeah. Mhm.
Yellen? No doubt.
Yeah, you got it.
So what we're going to do is we're going to do two segments. Cole and Bruce, there'll be the A block and the C block that we just did. Obviously, Cole, you can just come in off the top of the show. You don't have to read any statement or anything. This is just an audition internal.
You got it.
Um,
So we're doing the A's first.
Yep, we're going to do the A's, and we'll go Bruce first. Then Al, you can chime in. And
So we're
reminder,
gonna
this
read
topic
that
is,
VO. Is that how you want to do that, Miller? My bad.
yeah.
I'm jumping on you.
Yeah, read the full screen. It's just the
Okay.
topics. What sticks out to you about the proposal from the players? And Al, if we were doing this for real, we just want to avoid taking sides. Really, we just kind of want to stick to the facts that are reported and your thoughts on that. We don't really want to assign blame to anyone.
Miller, instead of I forget I was going to say, I don't know if I said a game of cat and mouse, but I was going to say who's the feline, who's the rodent, but I thought that, but maybe a little.
Yep. Yeah.
Not
Let's we'll ease off that.
Yeah.
And Al.
Want me to start with Al?
Let's start with Bruce, just so Al can just kind of see the flow of everything. But Al, do you see these messages?
I do not see it. I don't see any messages, no.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, now I do. Now I do.
Okay, great. So we run through traffic in between blocks, but there'll be notes in there too, just in terms of who's going next or if you'll get a re-tee, because there's no IFBs. So that's how we communicate. But we good to go on the records, Kev?
Hey, Al.
Yep, stand by. Just finalizing these shots.
One note, Al. Just have
Yeah.
some fun. Just have fun.
I plan to. Thank you.
Absolutely.
That's
Having
it.
fun with Bruce today. He got a little salty at me today. I mean,
Yeah, well, you had too many cups of coffee this morning. Way too much.
just the same as
caffeine.
always. Just the same as always. 1.5. I've actually had the smaller cup. I feel like it might be a little wider.
It looks big when you hold it right up to your camera like that, though.
Yeah, maybe it's the same amount of ounces. I didn't really do a fact check.
Overamped.
And then Miller, Suzanne just wanted me to remind you about the promos.
Yeah, I just saw that. They actually Cole, we just need to bang out those promos first. I guess that's a little more time sensitive today.
Oh, you want to do those first?
Yeah, they just said they
Let's
they just
do it.
need them for,
I'm ready.
timing.
I'm ready, baby. Let's go. Come on now.
This for stadium.
Do it.
This graphic.
Yep.
Which one is this? This is
So we're gonna do.
okay. I got you. That's hey. I had on Cubs 360. My Miller Lite will break down the players' proposal to the owners and how much will the Cubs miss Nick Castellanos plus Sammy Sosa's 20 home runs in June of '98. Is that the best achievement in all of baseball? That more tonight, 7:30. Cubs 360. Come on. All right.
You can count yourself in.
All right. In 3, 2, 1. Hey, straight ahead tonight on Cubs 360, presented by Miller Lite. We'll take a look at the players' proposal to the owners. Also, how much will the Cubs miss? Put it up. How much miss Nick? 3, 2, 1. Hey, ahead on Cubs 360, presented by Miller Lite. We're going to break down the players' proposal to the owners. Plus, we'll ask how much the Cubs will miss Nick Castellanos in 2020. Plus, remember Sammy Sosa's June of 1998? Was that the best month in the history of the game? That and more coming your way tonight on Cubs 360 at 7:30.
Let's just do another one and cut out the Sammy Sosa note just to try to keep it.
Yeah, I feel like three pops are always too much. They go like 18 to 20.
Yeah, it's really got to be two topics. Yep. All right, here we go. On you.
In 3, 2, 1. Hey, coming up tonight on Cubs 360, presented by Miller Lite, we'll take a look at the players' proposal to the owners, plus how much will the Cubs miss Nick Castellanos in 2020? That and more coming your way, 7:30 on Cubs 360. Don't miss it.
Perfect. And then this one we're going clean for here. One more, Dusold. Yep. Whenever you're ready.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Hey there, Cubs fans. Now the MLBPA, they issued their 3, 2, 1. Hey there, Cubs fans. Now the MLBPA, they issued their counter proposal to the owners, and on 3, 2, 1. Hey, Cubs fans. The MLBPA, they issued their counter offer to the owners, and on the stadium, they're going to give it a complete. I feel like it's meandering. My bad.
All good. 3, take your time.
2. You got it. 3, 2, 1. Hey there, Cubs fans. Now, as we know, the Players Association, they gave their counter proposal to the owners last night, and they'll touch on that at 7 o'clock on the stadium. And then at 7:30 on Cubs 360, Len, Bruce, and Pete and I will give it a complete comb over. That and more coming your way only on Cubs 360.
Nice. Thank you.
There we go.
Those are good to go. All right. So just, generic open here as if we're coming up to start the show. I'll be in the chat. We'll start with Bruce off the full screen. And like Bruce said, just keep it loose. We're just talking sports, so not serious. All right, here we go. In 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hey, it's time to get the ball rolling here on Cubs 360, presented by Miller Lite. My parents, they put Colwright on my birth certificate, so I guess that's what you're supposed to call me. But let's meet the guys that'll be on the show today, because you see him here all the time. It is Bruce Levine, and he's a newcomer to Cubs 360 right here from Bleed Cubby Blue. It's Al Yellen. Now, guys, hopefully we're getting back to normalcy sooner rather than later. And with the proposal being put in, hopefully that means we are on the right track, because the Players Association has submitted its proposal to the owners for the 2020 campaign. Now, let's have a gander at some of the key elements of that proposal. It's a 114-game regular season, which would last from June 30th all the way to All Hallows Eve. That's Halloween, of course. Now, a 14-team postseason, that would be the field, which would be an increase of 4 teams over the next 2 seasons. Now, the option for $100 million in salary to be deferred if the postseason is canceled, that is also on the table. And the players, well, they could have the right to opt out and not participate in the 2020 campaign. So, Bruce, when it comes to the most intriguing bullet point that I just read off, which one's jumping off the page to you?
Well, I think deferment, that the players and the Players Association has recognized the fact that the revenues just aren't there like they normally would be. The fans not being in the stands, constitutes anywhere from 40 to 70% of the revenues in there. So just them mentioning deferment, even deferment, with interest, is intriguing and lets me believe that there is a deal to be made down the line here, because we all know it's about the money. It always is. The medical is going to be agreed upon by both sides. That'll be hammered out, but it's all about these millions of dollars here. And to me, there is a road to a deal through this deferment situation that the players have thrown out there.
Al, how about you?
Well, it seems to me the thing that jumped out at me was the players' request or offer for a 114-game season as opposed to the 82 the owners wanted. Now, of course, the players have asked for a season to go through October 31st. Owners don't want to do that because they're afraid there might be a second wave of a virus outbreak and they might have to cancel their postseason, which would, of course, that's where the big money comes. But it seems to me that perhaps a 114-game season, since there are no fans in the stands, maybe the owners would agree to play doubleheaders. The players have mentioned that doubleheaders is a possibility. Certainly there's more TV money to be made there. If there's more games on TV, more advertising revenue, more money from TV. So maybe a compromise could be worked out where the doubleheaders could be played, but the season could be moved into the owner's time frame.
Al, what about the expanded postseason field going all the way up to 14 teams? Is this something that should just be adopted for this season or every other season moving forward? What say you?
Well, the players have already said that they would like to see this, or their offer contains an offer to make it this year and next year. That would be attractive to the owners. And I know 14 teams seems like a lot. Most of the other sports have more than that. The NFL is going to 14 teams this year. So it seems inevitable. That's where the big money is coming in baseball now, is the postseason. So owners want more postseason games. Players seem willing to have more postseason games. It gives more fans of more teams a chance to possibly be in the postseason. So it might wind up being a good offer to be starting this year and then going forward from there.
Yeah,
in the postseason. Go ahead, Bruce.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The network schedule would probably not allow for expanded playoffs this year, only because they've already set their TV schedule. It's hard enough finding playoff games early in October and on what station they're on in the present 10 team lineup. Now you have 14, you have 3 or 4 different outlets handling it. I don't think the money will be there for it this time around. So I think Al's right that in the future, 14 is probably going to be what the players and the owners want. But I don't think it works in the time frame of so little time to play so many games right now. I know the owners want desperately to be over with by October 1st, the beginning of or the regular season, moving toward the playoffs. Just as Al mentioned earlier, because of the fear of the pandemic coming back, but also Fox having to make a decision on baseball games and football games going up against their own schedule. So from the perspective of this year, they need to be done by October 1st. They need to have their playoffs done by November 1st, just not to go up against possible return of the virus and the football season going into full throttle.
But when you take into consideration a potential second wave, Al, as well as cold weather, how would players go about the fact that all the contributing factors and then a potential snowstorm and having to bundle up? That's not what we're used to in the playoffs, although we do see a little bit of frigid temperatures.
Well, before that, let me just go back to the point that Bruce was making about TV networks. MLB's got its own network, MLB Network. A lot of earlier postseason games, if they added them, could be on MLB Network. Maybe they could even go back to what used to be, and that they'd run some of the early playoff rounds on local regional sports networks, which would generate some money for the regional sports networks and the teams. In terms of cold weather, well, maybe we're in a situation where we have to put some of the playoff games in a neutral location. It wouldn't be great for fans, but on the other end, what difference does it make if fans aren't coming to the games? So, Southern California might be an area where they could play, where they could have a central location for playoff games. They've got 2 major league ballparks there, in Dodger Stadium and Angel Stadium, where they could conceivably play playoff games in October. Also, then you can put all the players in one place and reduce travel. So that might be an option for them if they increase the playoff field.
Cubs, Cardinals, NLCS live from Tropicana Field, coming soon to an MLB season near you. Now, still more to come right here on Cubs 360, presented by Miller Lite. The Cubs, as we know, have a rich tradition when it comes to starting pitchers. Fergie Jenkins, Big Z, Kerry Wood, just to name a few. So who's our guy if we need a win and we can't pick Greg Maddux? We'll give you the answer next, right here. Don't move.
Nice. Good segment there. Good point on MLB Network. I'm sure they would love to put more games on their own channel. That's a no-brainer. Al, just making sure, just try to stay focused looking. I know it's hard because you're not next to them, but looking through the camera.
Yeah, it's all good. It takes some getting used to, Al.
Yep.
Yeah, trust me.
Al, real quick.
I don't need to step on your toes there.
For framing purposes, can you push your laptop a little further away from you real quick? I just want to create a little bit more space for you. Perfect. Let's see that real quick.
And Miller, which one are we doing? We're doing the B's
That's
next.
perfect. Thanks so much.
We're doing the C's here. We're doing
Oh, we got it.
Castellanos.
We got it.
So, Al, this segment, we call it our Miller Lite Refreshing Take, and we put out a statement, that might be a little bit of a hot take. And today's statement is the Cubs will not miss Nicholas Castellanos next year. And Cole will start with Al, and Cole will set it up. There's a statement. Do you disagree or do you agree with it? And the thinking is here that they brought in Souza. Miller might be on the roster with some additional spots, but obviously he had a pretty impressive stretch in a Cubs uniform. So we'll take it on a 3-shot at a break here, Kevin, and we'll toss to Al, and Bruce, you can follow up. Al, on the don't feel like if you're seeing the notes, Al next, you don't have to wait for Cole to jump in. That means you can just jump in right away. You don't have to.
Okay.
That once Bruce stops, then you can just step right in.
Got it.
Okay, let's have some fun. Good energy here.
Yep.
Here we go. In 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hey, we continue to stick and move here on Cubs 360. Bruce and Al back here on the show. And guys, if the season were underway right now, well, we'd be putting the wraps on a 4-game set at Wrigley, Cubs versus the Reds. And the guy that we just saw, Nick Castellanos, well, yeah, it would be a homecoming for him, so to speak. And old Nick, he gets us to our Miller Lite Refreshing Take of the day, where, Al, I'll ask you, the Cubs, they're not going to miss Castellanos at all in 2020. Yes or no? Give us your hot take.
I'd say yes, they won't miss him. Or no, it's a yes or no question, but no, they won't miss him because Nick Castellanos was great for 2 months in a Cub uniform. But, look at the balance of his career. He was never really that great in Detroit. He was obviously a good player. All of a sudden he got to Wrigley Field and he was hitting doubles all over the place. On the other hand, that's a $64 million contract. Did the Cubs really want to invest that much money in a guy who really is not a great right fielder? They don't really have a position for him. If the National League had the designated hitter, I might feel differently. But I think that the Cubs will be fine with the outfielders they have. Jason Hayward has improved every year he's been with the team. Looks like Albert Almora Jr. is ready for a breakout year, possibly. Ian Happ ready for a breakout year. Kyle Schwarber had the best year of his career. And they signed Steven Souza Jr., who's had good years, spent the last 2 years mostly injured, but could go back to his previous level of performance. And he's really only expected to be a 4th outfielder. So will they miss Nick Castellanos? I would say no.
Well, Al, I'm going to have to disagree with you because not only did he bring those numbers in those 51 games that he played, but he brought tremendous energy to the team as well. And I think the guys that you named there's a lot of good opportunities there for those guys to break out, but they're all maybes right now. And I think Souza recovering from that leg injury, such a severe injury, he showed good signs in spring training 1. So did Happ. He continued his hitting ways and a new swing that he has shown, which is more level now, adding on to what he was doing in September of last year. As Al pointed out, Almora had a good spring training. We know we don't count on spring training too much, but it's either do it or get moving on for these guys because the outfield production for the Chicago Cubs outside of Schwarber has been really, really weak, both run scoring and run production from the RBI side. So they need much more run production. They need much more OPS to continue on and help that very good all-star infield and catcher out in the batting order and in the run production area.
Now, Bruce, as Al pointed out, Albert Almora Jr., he's looking to have a breakout season, and Jason Hayward, he's improved each and every single year while in a Cubs uniform. But when it comes to Hayward, we know what he can do defensively. How about offensively? How much does he need to step it up in 2020?
Well, he did it. He was on pace to having a much better year. He hit 20 home runs, which was the most he's hit as a Cub. That was encouraging. He went down the tubes when they asked him to lead off. That month took him out of his season. He was never comfortable with it. He was not good in it, and it kind of sunk a season that had a lot of promise to it. So consistency is something you look for Hayward. You put him in the 6 or 7 spot, you leave him alone, and hopefully other people. Miller in the outfield as well could be a wild card. He could be a guy that comes in there as a DH or a leadoff man in some capacity and bring run production in a different manner rather than just driving in runs.
You mentioned Ian Miller, and of course, one thing that he showed during spring training is speed. That's something this Cubs team doesn't have much of. They don't really steal bases. The only guy who kind of does is Javi Baez, but the rest of the team is kind of slow-footed. So having a guy like Miller as a spare part outfielder might be a very useful thing. He's also good defensively, and they could certainly use that.
Yeah, Ian Miller, not to be confused with our Marquee Sports Network producer, Andrew Miller. Ian Miller, he stole 30 or more bases at every single level he's been at in organized baseball. Now, still more to come right here on Cubs 360, including back in June of '98, Sammy Sosa, well, he was balling. 20 home runs, but is that the most impressive stat when it comes to baseball history? Our picks, they're coming our way next.
At the end there.
Okay, like that shout out.
And the stolen bases too. Al, thank you. That was great. We appreciate.
Thank you.
Good stuff, Al. Thank you, brother.
Good stuff, Al.
Thank you.
Enjoyed doing it with you.
Thanks, Bruce. Thanks, Cole. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Hopefully see you
soon. Talk to you soon, Bruce and Cole. Thanks for hanging around. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, no doubt.
We're all set for
I'll see you in like 17 minutes, Bruce, for the guys on the whatchamacallit.
I thought it's at 3:00.
Yeah, I just pushed it back just because just all the stuff that we had today, and I knew we were doing this, so the guys said that 3:15 was cool, no doubt.
All right, see you then.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. See you then.
Thanks. See you
later, gang.